guess what I just did? I got myself some Bitcoin. Our next guest is helping make Bitcoin accumulation easy for people who live in places where you're used to topping up your mobile minutes with like mobile cards, right? So Akin Fernandez is a founder of Azteco, and he's going to help us understand how over 1 billion people who are used to doing this with mobile minutes can start learning in an easy way how to get Bitcoin. So please welcome Akin Fernandez. Let's give it up. Come on. Rock and roll, my friend.
Thanks a lot. Okay, well, thank you for coming to this talk. Hello? Oh, okay. I'm trying to put my hands behind my back. So I've got a lot of slides to go through, so I'm trying to whiz through them. So let's get going. Now, what we've been dealing with since the inception of Bitcoin, we're calling in Azteco first generation Bitcoin, when the basic infrastructure of everything has been put in place that would be leading inevitably to the consumerization or the mass adoption of Bitcoin. And so the second generation Bitcoin is coming, and it's not going to look anything like the first generation of Bitcoin. That's a quite natural evolution from one stage of something to another. Now, there are many people who are involved in Bitcoin, and they all have their different approaches to it, their different thinking about it. And one thing they all have in common is that they're all on the same network. And these different approaches, these different people are all equally valid on the network. And so there isn't really, strictly speaking, a right way to do anything with Bitcoin as long as what the purpose you're serving is fulfilled. The design that you came up with originally is fulfilled. And so we can do whatever we want with Bitcoin, and other people can do whatever they want with Bitcoin, and never the twain shall meet, because we're all on the same network, following the same rules. And I think this is one of the breakthroughs of Bitcoin as a system in itself. Many people can bring their own approaches and have different opinions, different points of view, and as long as they all obey the network rules, we can all get along and use Bitcoin together. So, in our new approach to how Bitcoin is going to be presented to the public, what we're doing is we're taking out all of the Bitcoin nomenclature and culture and all of the things that we, including me, have become very fond of and familiar with. But what we found is that we need to speak about Bitcoin in a different way, a way that takes the ideas of Bitcoin to the people in a form that they can understand. And this is a video that will show you the kind of thinking that we've produced.
Here's a bit of a story about the mighty in the small. First a bit today, then a bit every day. A bit for the rainy days, and a bit for the special days. A bit here and there, and a bit near and back home. A bit for you and a bit for me. Always up to me. At Azteco, we believe in the collective power of the little bits. So we give choice to all the bits that count, making it easy for everyone, everywhere to get Bitcoin and use it in their lives. Azteco Bitcoin vouchers for every bit of life.
Now, isn't that lovely? There was many things in that, but what was important about it is what we've left out. This is about normal people. And of course, everybody here is a normal person, but this is about the consumer. The consumer who's never heard about Bitcoin, has no inroad into it, and frankly, when they're exposed to the information about everything that's happening underneath Bitcoin, all of which is very important, they're not particularly interested in. And of course, these people should have access to Bitcoin, and we need to make it simple for them so that they can start to understand it. So in my previous talk at BitBlock Boom, I laid out in tease form the thinking about what will be required for the normalizing and regularizing and the making boring of Bitcoin. Now, the reason why I use this phrase, making boring, is because there are a billion people on WhatsApp. Nobody thinks that WhatsApp's exciting or that we have to gather together to talk about WhatsApp. It's boring. We just use it to do the things that WhatsApp does. And so it's very important that Bitcoin becomes like WhatsApp. It becomes boring. It becomes commonplace. It becomes everyday. And if we don't strive to make this happen, it's going to be very, very difficult to see the second-order effects of Bitcoin reaching billions of people and becoming a global money. So this is why we have to start thinking slightly differently about how we talk about Bitcoin to people who haven't experienced it yet. And so this means that somebody, whether it's us or somebody else, has to split from the current culture of Bitcoin. If this doesn't happen, then the next stage, the mass onboarding of people, simply will not happen. Now, going back to WhatsApp again, which I like to do quite a lot, it took WhatsApp 4.5 years to onboard 1 billion people. Now, Bitcoin's been going for 11 years now, and so we should expect that there should be at least 1 billion people on Bitcoin in a similar amount of time, because the tools that are used to give people access to Bitcoin are identical to WhatsApp. And so, whether it's going to happen in the next 4 years or not, we'll have to see. We'll do our best to make it happen. But that's the kind of adoption rate that we need to be thinking about. And we need to copy the way that WhatsApp and other companies have spread to billions of people in order to make that happen. And so we're working on creating a new category to produce a set of tools that we're calling consumer Bitcoin. It's a market category that hadn't existed before, designed specifically to cater to the needs of the consumer, who isn't necessarily interested in who Satoshi is or was, or anything else to do with the things that we think are interesting. Ordinary people do not think those things are interesting. They want to get things done. And so we're going to help them do that. And so we're going to do this through our new consumer Bitcoin experience. Now, this consumer Bitcoin experience can be boiled down to a single word: minimalism. We've taken everything out that isn't strictly required to deliver Bitcoin to the consumer and discarded it and replaced it with nothing. Now, in order to make the public get served in a non-confrontational, easy-to-understand, fast way, we've removed all the encumbrances in our voucher buying system. And so a voucher, for those of you who don't know, is a piece of paper that billions of people use to add airtime to their mobile phones. And we've taken that model, superimposed it on Bitcoin, and come up with something that anybody can understand, both in the West and in the so-called third world, and it will just work out of the box without having to have any training or anything else. And so the question is, where are people going to be able to get these vouchers? First of all, they can buy it directly from us, and so we're now available throughout the entire of LATAM, including Brazil, Mexico, Argentina, Costa Rica, Colombia, et cetera, et cetera. And then the next one is from an online store where we have an integration with G2A, Off-Gamers, Kingwin, Iniba, Tillo, and many companies like this, which represent over 50 million people. And this G2A, in fact, has been one of our best performing distributors so far. So we know we're onto something. We know it's working. And the third option is from a local store. Now, people who buy top-up vouchers normally go to a store, pay over a small amount of cash, get a 16-digit voucher, and then they can top up their phones. And so that's what's going to be very familiar to the people who are getting onto Bitcoin through this option. And these are what the design looks like for these vouchers. As you can see, they go from $10 up to $1,000. Now, most people in Azteco histories have been buying vouchers of the size of around average $138. So this is not about hodling or storing huge amounts of money. It's about sizes of money, sizes of voucher to help people get things done in their ordinary lives. There are 2 billion people who are unbanked. They have no means of receiving money or sending money. But with Bitcoin, that problem is solved because they have a device, a smartphone, which will allow them to do that they already have and they're already topping up. So it's a small step to go from topping up your mobile phone to make calls to topping up your phone with Bitcoin. And once again, we're available in 190 countries right now through those distributors and some more that are coming. And that's what it looks like, as you saw in the video, when you go into a store. In that case, it was in Pick n Pay in South Africa, where you get a thermal printer printing out the voucher for you. It's very beautiful, very, very simple. And consumer Bitcoin in action. From the beginning of Azteco, when I first thought of this idea as a way to get a hold of Bitcoin, having found it very difficult myself to get Bitcoin, I knew that this model could be what in Britain they call a goer. And so from the very beginning, we stripped out all of the complexity that has to do with getting Bitcoin through a normal service, quote unquote normal service. All you need to do is to get your 16-digit voucher code, paste in your Bitcoin address, we check if you're not a robot, and then you get the Bitcoin basically three seconds later. And so the fact that this is doable means that there is no reason not to do it. The only reason why other services don't do this is because they're being compelled not to. And that compulsion, I think, is unethical because it's stopping Bitcoin from spreading all over the world, and that's, of course, what our enemies do not want. So we need to be very careful in how we design these services, how we expose them to the public, and the sorts of language we use when we talk about Bitcoin. So let's look at the two options that we have currently running in Azteco. The first one is Lightning. Now, Lightning has been a lifesaver for us because we deal with small amounts of money in Bitcoin vouchers. And if the fees go up to $15 to send Bitcoin on chain, obviously a voucher of $10 is not feasible. So Lightning came along at just the right time for us, and we're very grateful for those super geniuses at Lightning who made this possible. And so let's take a look at what it looks like. First of all, and this, by the way, is the workflow for Brazil. And there's going to be a very interesting part just around here that I'm going to have to explain away. So let's talk about Brazil. This is what it looks like on your iPhone or Android. And you choose an option, which is one of the 3 options we have for Brazil currently. And then you say how much you'd like to pay in this lovely pink box. And then we tell you how much Bitcoin you're going to be sent when you complete the process. And then we take your email address. Now, the reason why we do this is not because we're being compelled to do it. It's because there are many criminals on the earth, apart from the ones in the Federal Reserve, which you'll know about. But there are many criminals on the earth, and they are very keen on exploiting Bitcoin companies. I can tell you from first-hand experience, they're absolutely ruthless. And so what we've done, not having been compelled to do it, is that we've worked with a company that will ensure that the person who's making this payment is the person that they say they are. Because we're using an online payment system, in this case in Brazil called Pix, that is the preferred scammer route for doing scammy things online. And so once we know for sure that the person is who they say they are, and we can send them this Bitcoin voucher reassured that it's not going to a bad guy. And so that is essentially the whole process. And we don't store the information, the personal information of the person who's going through this process. We only store a hash identifier of that person so they can come back again and not have to re-identify themselves. So it's not onerous, it's not invasive, and it's there to provide protection for ourselves, for our distributors, and for the user who, if they have their PIX information stolen, can be robbed online, and we don't want to be a party to anything like that. And so, when you get a Lightning voucher emailed to you, it has this absolutely fabulous design. And as you can see from this QR code, it's made of dots, not squares. All other Bitcoin businesses use a standard QR code design, and actually it's not necessary. We can make the QR code look like a pagoda if we wanted to, and it would still scan. So our designers, who we hired in to do this job, who worked on Airbnb, Foursquare, the V&A, who were the top-grade, world-class designers, gave us this design to help us differentiate ourselves from the other Bitcoin businesses and the thinking of Bitcoin that's been, well, kind of useful, but maybe not so much anymore. And everybody's favorite wallet of Satoshi, is what they're going to use to redeem this voucher. And it says exactly how much you're going to get. You scan it with your phone, and that's it. Instantaneously, you've got those bits in your account, and there has been no onerous process other than what you see here. It's very, very, very simple. And in the case of PIX, it's sufficiently private so that you can feel reassured using it. Now let's look at on-chain. And on-chain is even more true to Bitcoin than the Lightning experience when buying with PIX. So, you buy a voucher at an outlet. You either get a thermal printed one with the lovely fancy-dancy QR code, or you get an Azteco voucher from some other place which looks like this with the colorful design. And then you go to the redeem page on azte.co, and you can get to this page by scanning the QR code that's either on here or on here, so that you don't have to type in any numbers, which actually, a lot of people have fat fingers, believe it or not, and one character wrong can spoil the experience. So it's better for you to scan it and have it pre-filled for you. And doing stuff like this is rocket science. It's very, very difficult. So we're very proud of our developers who put this together. And then the voucher code is confirmed automatically over the internet. You tell you how much you're going to give you in the Bitcoin, and then we ask you to put your Bitcoin address into the form. And then, just like magic, that's it. The Bitcoin is winging its way to you, and that's the end of the process. There's nothing else. And so if you buy your voucher, which can be up to $1,000 at a store or anywhere else you can get it, this is the only process you have to go to get $1,000 worth of Bitcoin. It's absolutely fantastic, and furthermore, it's legal. So, now what? We've designed this amazing, beautiful system. It's intuitive, it's consumer-friendly, it's very, very nice. But how are we going to prove that it's going to work with the consumer? That's the question. Anybody can design anything, and this is a picture of the store where I sat for 2 weeks testing the idea of Azteco itself, and I found that it actually worked. So the initial test told us it was correct. So the question is, what are we going to do to spread this all over the world? And we have a plan for that, as you can imagine. And look at this. This is the curve from the G2A site showing our rate of sales. It's almost a match, perfect match with an exponential curve. And so if you put a line in like that, you can see it actually matches quite well. So our sales are growing like there's no tomorrow, and that's only from one distributor, one out of the many distributors that we have. And so I think we're onto something. I think we have a market fit. People like the idea of getting Bitcoin in an easy way, and of course without having to identify yourself in an onerous way. And so I think we actually are onto something. And so how are we going to distribute this service all over the world? Well, what we believe is that we can use a system like this, where Azteco is at the root and the outlets are the two other parts of this dendritic display. And so, in this diagram, we have one place where it's coming out of and two places where it's being distributed to. And so, if we expand that, Azteco is the root of this tree going out to many, many, many branches. And then if we get more of these distribution points in, all of a sudden, we're going to have many, many, many outlets all over the world where you can buy Bitcoin in the most simple possible way, and also online, in addition to these physical distributors. So, distribution, we believe, is the key to Bitcoin's success, as well as recategorizing it into a consumer format that doesn't have any jargon and other things associated with it. We are pretty sure we're right because the numbers are telling us that we're right. And I've just run out of time. So, with Bitcoin, we have a chance to literally reach for the stars. The fiat system is the root of many, many evils that this world is suffering from, whether it's the wars or the destruction of people's savings. It's got to be stopped. And the way to stop it, first of all, is to have something like Bitcoin, and secondly, to get it into the hands of as many people as we can possibly get it into. And so we're doing our part to try and get Bitcoin into the hands of those people so that the effects of Bitcoin can become real and a global effect. And I hope that this presentation has helped you understand our thinking as we've moved forward into consumer Bitcoin. Thank you very much.